Peter, how are you feeling, first of all? I mean,
I'm doing okay. Yeah, broken cheekbone. Um, had surgery that the next morning, and so yeah, some lingering issues, but nothing too crazy.
how comfortable were you playing?
Um, I think it's kind of that time of year where everyone's going through something, and yeah, I think the first little bit coming back was trying to get my bearings a little bit, but like I said, you know, the everyone's going through something, and to be able to join the group after some of the things that they did on the road with Pittsburgh and Toronto, and um, felt like it was important to kind of be all in, and I think everyone was, and I mean, you saw the desperation that we had as a team, and can't talk to, you know, I could talk at length about that all day. So just one of the guys, everyone was doing their part.
How would you look back on your year with reflecting on your performance? When your first year you were coming in off the surgery, so that was kind of catching up, but just having had a full season and coming off a healthy summer.
Yeah, I think still trying to kind of figure out, you know, my performance. I think there was, you know, really good stretches and stretches where maybe I didn't love my game as much. I think, you know, role-wise, it kind of changed from, you know, last year kind of being a little bit more offensive to this year, kind of playing against the other team's top line, especially down the stretch here, in a checking capacity, and, you know, not a lot of power play. So, I mean, I always wish, you know, I think every guy always wants to produce more. I think obviously I can, but yeah, my focus, you know, with the way that the lines and all the roles shook out, that was kind of what they needed from me, and I felt like, you know, especially when me, Ross, and Fish were going, we were playing well, we were producing, and we were playing against the other team's top line, and those were a lot of the games that we won down the stretches when we were doing that. So, yeah, I think there's you know, there's more to my game offensively, but that wasn't really asked of me this year, and so you kind of just gotta, you know, do what's asked of you, and felt like did a decent job, especially down the stretch.
How much of a challenge is it to produce more when you are in that role that you talked about going up against the top lines every night?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just not your focus. You know, I think you know, obviously Larks and JT, like their lines were kind of buzzing offensively, and you know, between Cat, Kane, and Razor, DP, you know, they were you know, kind of producing towards the end. So to free them up against different types of matchups, and it kind of forces the other team to, do they want to play their top D with their top line, and then you know, their second and third pairs are going against our top two lines, or is it do they want to take their best puck movers off their top line, and then maybe their wingers don't get the puck as much, they don't break it out as clean, so it kind of causes a lot of problems for other coaches, and so yeah, it's you know, you're going out against those guys. You know, this has been a Jazz. Your focus is checking, and it's really tough to produce 5-on-5 in this league, and then, you know, power play is a huge part of producing. So yeah, I mean, is what it is. It's whatever was, you know, best for the team to help them win.
Will it be a goal for you to come into camp to prove to them that you don't necessarily need to be that guy, that you can still be that offensive guy and be a top six guy?
I mean, I think I've proven that I can be a top six offensive player. It wasn't what was asked of me, and I mean, I love going against the other team's top line. I think that's, you know, a really strength. If you were to look at like the number one strength of my game, you would say hockey IQ and you know, defending. So I do relish that role. Obviously, everyone wants to produce, everyone wants to score goals. You know, whatever's best for the team, I think is the biggest thing. So you know, obviously come in prepared, ready to produce offensively, at the same time ready to have a huge role in shutting the other team's top guys down, and being vital in the PK. So there's, you know, you're always working on all parts of your game in the summer, but yeah, I don't think it'll be any different this year in terms of, you know, both the offensive and defensive sides.
And you're going back to that cheekbone. I mean, how galling was it? There wasn't even a call.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, honestly, I knew that they didn't make the call, but at the time I was more worried about how my cheek was indented and any lingering head issues and all that. So I knew that they didn't make the call. I was shocked that they didn't make the call, but I actually didn't know if it was Ole Stick too. But then looking at the replay, it was pretty impossible for it to be Ole Stick. So.
Was it broken multiple places or just?
No, it was just broken in one place, I think.
And looking at this team's performance, and at the start of January, you guys were playing really well, impressively well, and then you had the period when you weren't playing well. Can you put? I mean, obviously, when you go bad, it's usually multiple things. But can you put your finger on what's the difference on this team when you're really going well, and then when you weren't going well?
I think part of it's like confidence and swagger. Like I think during that January period, like we kind of like we were walking into games like knowing we were gonna win, and we were playing a particular type of game that lends itself to that type of feeling. Even in the 6-game winning streak that we had after the break, like kind of the end of the Western Canada, we had a few wins here. Some of those it wasn't the same. We were kind of getting by just like scoring a ton. Like our conversion rate was insane. So we kind of got loose in our game, and then right after that's when the skid kind of hit. And I think the start of it was we lost to the Islanders, who played what the Islanders do. And we were like, okay, like that's a little bit more playoff hockey. Like, are we prepared for that? And then we lost to Florida, and we lost Larks, and then we just kind of like lost confidence in what we had done, because we knew that 6-game win streak right before that wasn't really a sustainable brand of hockey, and we were trying to get back to that January winning streak brand, and we kind of just lost it for a minute there, lost a little bit of confidence, and then we were playing really good teams, and it can snowball fast. So I think I think going into next year, like in terms of preaching consistency, is probably the biggest thing, because we had a couple stretches that were pretty bad, and it cost us.
Obviously, it's hard to play a playoff style hockey for 82 games. So, like, what does it take to have that consistency? With the grind and schedule, what do you have to?
Well, I think we got to a certain type of team game in that January. Parts towards the end, there was a certain brand that we were playing, and a certain type of team game where you're not gonna have your A game every night, and you got to find that B+ game where we might not be snapping it around, we might not score on the power play, but you find a way to win 4-2 with an empty netter. Like those types of games where we don't make egregious mistakes. The mindset is always the same. You're not necessarily feeling it, but you're not really giving the other team a lot either, and that's kind of when that's how teams get to 110 points. Like you're not going to snap it around every night. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. It's just finding that B+ game from October, November. Like it's going to happen where you're not really feeling it that night as a team, and pucks are bouncing, and not everything's sharp, but at the same time you can still check, still kill penalties, you win big face-offs, you get a couple greasy goals, and all of a sudden it's 2-2, and get the it's that B+ game is going to be the most important thing for us to find.
It didn't end exactly the way you want it to, right? But there were some really meaningful games down the stretch, and you've been in situations like that, but a lot of your younger teammates haven't been. How valuable can that last month or so of hockey be heading into next season?
Yeah, big time. In a certain way, for us to get 7 out of the last 8 points, and it should be a confidence builder, and it's kind of, obviously you want to make the playoffs, but we, like, for the last 3-4 games, like, we kind of controlled what we could control, and hopefully that's kind of a springboard. It's, let's say we went into a series, let's say lost in 6 games, like, you lose a series, like, you lost your last game of the year, you're a little down, you made the playoffs, but you lost your last game of the year, like, we're not going to have that almost reality check. So we should kind of be, I don't want to say flying high, but like you should have a little bit of like confidence going into the summer that like we won big games down the stretch. Obviously, you could go back for how many ever losses we had. Like there's so many missed opportunities, but you can't really dwell on that at this point. There should be some swagger and confidence coming into training camp next year for sure.
Does that kind of soften the blow? Like, you guys did everything you could, and
No,
just
it doesn't
took your
soften
cap
the
off
blow
to
because
Washington.
there's 82 games and there's 40 games where we didn't get 2 points. So, like I said, you can nitpick all day. I'm sure you guys have, to be honest with you. But at this point, like, that's kind of like what I said about that B+ game. Like, you got to find that early and rely on that when the team's not feeling it. You're back to back and you're going into Florida. Like, that's how you have a chance to win.
Did you see progress this year? Like, when you signed here, obviously you knew there was going to be multi-steps with this. Did you see the progress that was kind of you guys needed to start taking this year?
For sure, I think, like I talked about with that team game, I think that really kind of started to ramp up, and there was really good points in the second half of the season. I think individually for certain players, I don't really need to talk. Like, you guys see it, you see the Raymond. I mean, Lark's not that he's not really at that age where you continue to take steps, but he still is, and just in his mindset and leadership, like, you see it every day, like how hard he works. Mo, I mean, all the young guys I think took massive. Simon coming down, like playing in the AHL all year and then playing as big of minutes as he did. So in terms of the youth and all that, like, you see steps taken like crazy. And I think the way that our team was in the locker room and off the ice this year too was another massive step. So yeah, I think there's a lot of progress. There's a lot to be excited about, and looking forward to seeing that, over the course of the next year.
So when Dylan's out for that stretch, how do you guys look at that? Because that's a stretch where obviously coincided with the losing streak. Is it something where that's something you learn from? You're more critical of yourself? Like, how do you guys look at that stretch when Dylan was out and coincided with some of those?
It kind of coincided with some loss of swagger and confidence right before that. So, I mean, I don't think it's a secret he's our best player. So, but also in Winnipeg, Mark Scheifele was our best player, and we went 13-1-2 without him for a stretch. So we kind of couldn't find our footing at the same time and so that was kind of a perfect storm. But I mean, like, he is massive in the lineup. But with that said, like, we should be able to handle any one player loss and not lose 7 in a row. So, yeah, I mean, it was. I guess I don't know too much like what else to say about it, but yeah, we needed to find our footing and we couldn't. It was kind of the perfect storm.
You said you saw a difference in the locker room and off the ice. What kinds of things do you mean when you say that? Or maybe different, or
I think, well, you get to a certain point in the year and, especially when teams are rebuilding, like, they love internal competition, right? Like, they love, who's going to come, these two guys, like, which one's going to be the guy that goes to the first line, which one's going to be the guy that settles into a checking role, like, who's going to be on the first power play. Like, teams love internal competition, especially when you're rebuilding. But then it comes to a point where, like, the internal competition's over. Like, come February, the internal competition's over. Like, everyone knows where they stand, and it's your job to take on roles, and now it's all about the team. And it kind of is. I think that's a part that I'm looking forward to next year is, like, from the get-go, I think we all know, like, this is all about the team. And not to say that it's ever not, but, like, there's always that internal competition, who's going to go where, who's having what role. But down the stretch, I think you saw pretty much, everyone bought into where they were at, what they were expected to do, and, like, that team game that I'm talking about, like, it's so valuable. And that's how, like, guys, like, end up playing better anyways. Like, Razor was playing an unbelievable team game and produced like crazy, and now is going to get, hopefully a very nice contract this summer. But like, it has nothing to do with him thinking about, he's all about the team, and it was from top to bottom, across the room. So I think that's so important for teams going forward. And I've been on teams where we had like 15 UFAs going into a playoff, or kind of going down the stretch, and everyone's like, I kind of got to get my points. Like, like, everyone's worried about other stuff, and we didn't have that one bit, and it was a great room to be in, honestly.
You've been on teams before that have won playoffs. When you look at kind of those, is it a lot of those times those roles are known and training camp? Like, is it kind of the
Every coach is different.
Yeah.
I think in Winnipeg, like we had so many young guys that it was kind of clear where guys were going. Like Nick Ehlers is going to be a top 6 forward. You know, Kyle Connor's going to be a top 6 forward. You know, myself, Adam Lowry, Trouba, Morrissey, like they kind of came in and kind of got thrown in the fire right away, and like this was your role. And different coaches have different perspectives on that too. You know, sometimes like you go into training camp and like this is where you're going to be for the year, pretty much. And then other teams, it fluctuates a lot. So, getting a feel for that. But that's when, you know, once we kind of got settled, January, February, March. I mean, obviously we had a couple slides in there, but I think that the team got settled, the team game ramped up as well.
Is that dynamic sort of made possible or accelerated by the fact that you're playing high-stakes games down the stretch, or is it still an option if that weren't the case?
It definitely gets. It probably, because you're playing such important games, like you have to do what you're asked to do. You know, like, it becomes obvious, you know, where you are, and you know, there's communication with the coaches and all that kind of stuff, and what's expected of your line and everything like that. And you know, by 50 games in, you know how you're going to get deployed too. So, yeah, I think that's a important part of teams that win is at some point, like, this is how we're going to go, and you kind of saw that down the stretch.
Obviously, there's a whole off-season of changes that will come, but with the guys that you know are going to be here, like, what are your expectations now going into next year?
Well, I think there is so much that is up in the air. And there's a good chunk of UFAs. You know, I have no idea what their plans are for some of the younger players. You know, younger prospects, I guess. But I mean, I think it's to hit the ground running and kind of pick up where we left off. And like I said, finding that B+ game when we don't have our A game. And but the feeling in the room should be that this is just a springboard. And I don't know. I've seen a few things comparing it to the Lions team that won in Green Bay on the last game of the year and didn't make the playoffs, and kind of hoping it's something similar.
pretty common answer to that question is I just pay attention to myself. Like, you clearly look at depth charts, can you kind of give a little bit of a player perspective of just how you track that and kind of where you work and everything like that?
You mean like what prospect?
Like to Max's typical question, we often get the very cliched, I worry about myself, we'll see what happens. But obviously, it's something that I think people don't realize. Players go through and you're tracking all this stuff, you're looking at this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know it's not a great question, but like, give a little bit of insight to this is something that you try to keep track of, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's your life. Like, season ended and like, obviously, you know, everyone was planning on making playoffs, and like you're walking out of the rink in Montreal, I'm like, what the hell? Like, who am I right now? You know, like, what do I do tomorrow? What do I do in 2 days? And like this, so you're so wrapped up in this. Just I guess to give a little context on like how important all this is. Like we know, but like I guess you know, there's so many guys that are UFAs that we just don't know if they're gonna. And obviously that's not my decision, but I mean it's definitely things you think about, and definitely. In the back, it's more in the back of your head when it's you. That's like necessarily like the contract's ending, but yeah, I mean you're gonna watch playoff games. You're gonna watch, you know, you're gonna see things you like, things you don't like, and things you want to, you know, not even necessarily players, but just like things about people's game or about certain teams' games that you really like and you want to bring here. And so you're always learning. I mean, individually too. Like you're gonna skate with certain players. You're like, oh, he's really good at that. Like I need to get better at that. So yeah, it's always a constant evolution of thinking about the game.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.